Thank you, Jim, for I appreciate getting all the attention after your whistle. You know, you're sort of an institution here, you know, with the whistling at 7:30. But thank you. Before we get further into the program, I'd like to call on Bob Nolan to lead us in the pledge. Of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Bob. We had it on the screen here, but at 8 o'clock they're going to have a dedication ceremony outside, following the WACO meeting. The most important part is at 8 o'clock they're going to remove all the food. So you have until 8 o'clock to take advantage of the food that's out there. Oh. The ceremony's at 9, but the food is going to be removed at 8. But the 9 o'clock ceremony is also going to have food, so want to pass all that along. Okay, any announcements? New people to WACO? So maybe someone that's not been here for a while? Okay, very good. Okay, next we would like to go into our reports, and we have with us a special guest from Aqua to give us an update. Wendy Renderbush. She's going to give us the Aqua report. Wendy, thanks for joining us.
Good morning, everybody. I'm pinch hitting this morning, by the way, so this is what is otherwise known as winging it. I think Kathy Green's out today, and I don't see Larry McKinney's fedora anywhere, so I don't think he's in the building this morning. But I'm Wendy Ritterbush. I'm the Director of State Relations at the Association of California Water Agencies in Sacramento, so I cover both state legislative and state regulatory staff and issues for our association. Luckily, we only have 3 more weeks left in the legislative session this year. It's been very busy. There's so many issues. It would be hard to really single out 1 or 2 that were major. One that just came up within the last month, though, and I think would probably be of interest to many of you in the room is, I'll ask it this way. Who's heard of the LHC? Does anyone know what LHC stands for? Little Hoover Commission? The LHC is back, and we saw in the Assembly and Senate Daily Files about 3 weeks ago a notice for a meeting. So we did a little bit of research. They are doing a second study, is what they call it, on special districts. And many of you in the room probably recall their last study on special districts 16 years ago in the year 2000. It was a huge tome, about this thick. Several recommendations about special districts, in particular focusing on both water and wastewater districts. Concerns about property taxes, water districts receiving both property taxes and charging rates and fees. Concerns about, I think, what they termed considerable reserves of water districts. Concerns about lack of what they felt was transparency and openness in terms of, this was sort of almost right at the very beginning of the inception of the internet in commercial use and business use. So long story short, they're back again. The minute we saw that as an association, we called up the folks at Little Hoover Commission, and we asked for a meeting. We wanted a briefing on what they plan to cover. Part of one of the issues, I think, that really perturbed water agencies 16 years ago when the original report was released is there was a lot of misinformation and inaccuracies in the report, in particular on the issue of reserves. Reserves, it's hard to really talk about it at 100,000-foot level. I mean, there's allocated and then there's unallocated reserves. But long story short, they just sort of were treating the reserve accounts that our member agencies had sort of like savings accounts, and didn't really understand that, if you have a capital program that stretches for 20, 25 years, you're putting money aside in an account, right? But it's reserved. We can't just go out and spend it. And so, unfortunately, back in the day, they did not check with any of the agencies, really, or any of the statewide associations, including AQUA and Special Districts Association, to sort of get the other side of the story. So the minute we saw this, we felt like we had to be really proactive. So we got in there with Jim Wasserman, who's the Deputy Executive Director at the Little Hoover Commission, and he's also the project manager lead on this. And we sat down, and it was fantastic because as an association, after the property tax transfer in the early 2000s, we put together policy principles. Our board of directors sat down and came up with some great policy principles on how our association would be led through another spate of property tax raids or transfers or reserve raids by the state of California. So we're sticking with those principles. We've been operating off of them. To our relief meeting with Jim Wasserman, he indicated to us, at least initially, that healthcare districts and perhaps fire districts are sort of their focus. But if any of you recall from the Little Hoover Commission meetings, over a decade ago, it's kind of freewheeling. It's whatever members are there on the podium, on the dais. There's questions, there's public comment at the end. So it's going to be a pretty lively hearing. It's August 25th. And it's the first hearing, and then they're going to have a second hearing October 27th. So it's a series of meetings. And really, it sounds to me like they're digging around a little bit. They don't necessarily have a specific focus, but they are going to reopen a lot of the questions that they feel were unanswered in 2000. And just so you know, we felt pretty good at the conclusion of the meeting that we had with Jim Wasserman and his staff, a couple of his analysts that he brought with him. He started the meeting off like, the commission feels like we put this report out in 2000 and not a lot of things have happened as a result of that. So we let him introduce the topic and talk about it, and then when it came to our part to kind of fill him in and give him some responses, and I just said, we're really blown away that you don't feel as a commission that there's been a ton of changes, because in our industry we've had this was a seismic shift, no pun intended. The release of this Little Hoover Commission report in 2000, it changed the industry a great deal. We have so much transparency now. We have moved forward on a lot of things. A lot of our agencies put together much more detailed reserve policies indicating exactly what was allocated, unallocated for what and why. And, it's hard to find an agency in California that doesn't have a website with their meeting minutes posted. And so there's just so much more information and data available for those that want to follow special districts. I think it's kind of a misnomer to say that we're operating under the radar, and in particular in our industry, going through this drought. I mean, you can't go anywhere. I'm at the supermarket. I'm in yoga. People are talking to me about the drought. What's AQUA doing? What are water agencies doing? So we're certainly really not operating under the radar. And to the point of the drought and reserves, many of our member agencies have had to spend down their reserves in order to make it through this drought. Anyways, just to let you know, we're working on this. Keep your eyes open. A lot of times these Little Hoover Commission studies become the foundation for legislation moving forward. So just wanted to at least let you folks know what we're doing about it as an association, and I look forward to the program this morning. Thank you.
What a great... Well, like most of the time, you better hold on to your wallet. Okay, we have Brett Barbary that's going to provide the MWD update. Brett? Thank you very much. Good morning. The big issue on the Met agenda for this our coming meeting is we do it a week later, as you know, in August, because it's when the assessed valuations are accepted.
and we'll set the new voting allocations for all the board members. As you'll recall, last year, Los Angeles went above 20%, so they got a 5th director. Evidently, if they drop below 20%, they'll still keep 5 directors, but their allocation and votes will just stay where it is. So that's really kind of the big issue coming up at Met this month. We continue to spend a tremendous amount of money and resources doing R&R on the Colorado River Aqueduct. As you know, we just celebrated 75 years of water deliveries, and it still continues to hum at a great pace, and that's been a lifeblood for Southern California. With our state water that we're finally receiving for the first time in a while, we have sought to ensure that Castaic is completely full, because the northwest portion of our district can only receive State Water Project water. So we're going to make sure Castaic is full, and then we're starting to move water into Diamond Valley. And as many of you may or may not know, we're only putting State Water Project water in Diamond Valley because there are no quagga mussels. And so Colorado has been mostly served within the Met service area in the last couple of years. Deemer, for the first time in about 3 years, is going to start receiving state water. So it's been 100% Colorado River water. That blend is going to drop to probably 90% Colorado, and then 80 and supplemented with 10 to 20 from state. So that's important. Here, within the state, the storage looks pretty good at Oroville. Storage at San Luis is terrible. They've dropped it way down. That has more to do with some of the federal issues going on. And of course, Metropolitan is investing tremendous amount of time, energy, and resources to make sure that the ROD and the NOD are completed for the California water fix. Many of us believe this is critical between now and the end of this year, before the administration in D.C. changes, and before Jerry Brown becomes a lame duck for yet a second time, to make sure that both the state and federal sides have coordinated and approved everything for the California water fix. A good point on that is the governor hired Bruce Babbitt. That name may be familiar to you. He's a former Secretary of Interior under Clinton, former governor of Arizona, and he was Mike Connor's boss for many years. Mike is now in charge of things in D.C., and he was brought in by Governor Brown and the state to coordinate the federal and state resources to make sure everything works out. So we're cautiously optimistic. If you all have any questions or any concerns about that, let us know, and we're here to provide help and resources as needed.
Diamond Valley, how full are we?
We're about 450,000 acre feet, so we're about 55%, and we'll probably end up maybe 65% by the end of the year.
I'm kind of surprised that Bruce Babbitt's being involved. I just remember him being Secretary of Interior, giving a lot of the Central Arizona project water to the Navajo Indians. Does he have similar sort of surprise involvement in California?
Well, since he's not able to give away the water, his job is just to coordinate between the state and federal bureaucracies, and he knows the federal bureaucracy, having been in charge of it while at Interior, and has the trust of the governor to do it. They're longtime colleagues, so I don't anticipate that he'll be giving away any water, but one never knows. The fisheries seem to do a pretty good job at taking away our water, so.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Brett. Appreciate it.
Okay, now we've had a good update from Aqua and MWD, so we can get on into our main program for today. This is sort of the lead-in graphic for today's presentation, and we know there's many facets of responding to a major event that's certainly of great impact to the water systems. We have a very talented person that's going to review with us a couple aspects of the emergency response, because we know there's probably like 20 aspects of it, but we got to take it in bits and pieces. Kelly is so familiar with, and you're so familiar with her activities in Orange County, but Kelly has assumed a role outside of Orange County, responding and being very involved in major incidents outside of Orange County. And it seems like as time goes on, her list of involvement with statewide emergency response activities continues to grow. She's a major trainer to the industry, both in Orange County. I certainly hear reports from Moulton Nagel that Kelly's worked with them on one issue or another to prepare us, and I know she works with your agencies also. And from just to mention a couple of her outside activities, it's about a page and a half long. Just a couple that really stand out. That she is the California Water Wastewater Agency Response Network Mutual Aid Coordinator for Region 1. So that involves quite a few, large geographical areas. So, and she's responded to 11 incidents that received federal proclamations for their involvement in it. So, and also she's well educated, and she's probably getting embarrassed now, but in the sake of moving on, you know her, and we all depend upon her. So Kelly Hubbard, you've got a panel. We want to hear from you.
Good morning, everyone. I've come and talked to you guys a couple times. I can't remember when the last time was, but so last night, after I spoke at Aqua yesterday over at Metropolitan, had a program, and I facilitated a panel over there of water utilities and what they're doing for emergency preparedness. And so last night I was looking for things, pictures, new ways to present how I've presented to you guys before, because I don't like presenting the same way every time, and I don't like pulling up an old presentation. And I found this little comic strip in looking, and in between looking and finding this, I was looking at other pictures, and some of the pictures that I saw were Northridge, and how easy it is to forget how much damage occurred in Northridge and how we haven't had that in a very long time in Southern California. And so I thought that this little cartoon really brought that home in all of the pictures that I was looking at last night. If you ever see Dr. Lucy Jones speak, you know that she gives me chills just about every time I see her speak, because she sits there and she's talking to you, and then someone always asks the question, so when's the next earthquake going to happen? And she just kind of looks at you and she says, at any moment. You're like, okay. All right, so what we're going to do today is we're going to talk about response and coordination when the big one shakes Orange County. And typically, I feel like what I usually talk to you guys about is what we're doing to prepare, not necessarily how we respond. And so I'll talk a little bit about how the water utilities respond and coordinate. And then I brought probably two of my most favorite and best planning partners that I have here in Orange County, and that's Vicki Osborn from the Office of Emergencies. Oh, I got that. Orange County Emergency Management Division now. I keep forgetting that's division. And Jim Acosta from the California Office of Emergency Services. And Vicki is going to talk about the operational area concept and how, as a county, we coordinate between agencies. And then Jim will talk about how, at the state level and southern region, we coordinate between all of the counties. And then we'll do some Q&A from the audience, and I'll talk a little bit about what's coming up and how your agencies can get involved. First, I thought we'll talk about those water utilities. I thought I'd mention, I said I usually come and talk to you guys about preparedness. And so these were the 6 items in facilitating yesterday's panel for Aqua, I talked about, and I just thought I'd bring them up real quickly because preparedness is something that should never be forgotten or passed up. And the 6 things that I shared with them yesterday is, 1, plan for the impacts, not the event. If you plan for the power being out, it doesn't matter what caused the power going out. If you plan for the line break, it doesn't matter what caused the line break, you're ready for the major line break. So plan for the impacts, not necessarily the event. Your disaster fiscal and purchasing policies will make or break your agency, and whether or not you can move the resources and get the resources you need during that disaster. Logistics. As water agencies, we kind of have some unique, cool stuff that we play with, which means they're not always available for everyone else or where we can find them easily. So know what unique resources you're going to need and find those ahead of time. Mutual aid agreements. It was mentioned that I'm the Region 1 coordinator for CalWARN, the California Water Wastewater Agency Response Network. Please, please, please make sure your water utility or wastewater utility has signed that agreement. Not all Orange County agencies have signed that yet. You signed WeRock. Thank you. Love that. But WeRock helps us coordinate in-county. And when this big one happens, we're not going to be able to help each other. We're going to need people from outside of this county to come in and help us. And that's where we're going to need CalWARN. So if you haven't done that, I'd encourage you to do that. 5, probably one of the most important preparedness things that you can do as an agency, and that's to build your relationships now, because you should never be introducing yourself after the earthquake. And then 6, practice, train, and exercise. And I know I'm talking to a bunch of executive management and elected officials, so what I'd like to impart to you is encourage and give the support to your staff for them to practice, train, and exercise. Because a lot of times they feel like there's so many priorities, we don't have time for this. It's always pushed aside. And without doing that, you're not going to be ready for that event. So that's my quick overview of preparedness, because I feel like I talked to you guys about that. Earthquake, storm, fire, whatever it might be. Boom, bam, bang, big disaster. What happens next? Besides protective actions, please, drop, cover, and hold. Don't be the earthquake geek like me that gets on the computer instead of getting underneath the desk to see what magnitude it was. Don't do that. But what's the first thing? The first concept is mobilizing your staff, right? And this question came up from the planning committee. And how do districts mobilize their staff? And largely, there's protocols in place for when we respond to an event. For WeRock and MODOC, 5.0 or greater within Orange County, and we respond to our emergency operations centers. All districts, all water utilities will have a protocol on when do we respond to our agency. And I've had some staff ask me, well, what if the TV is not working and I don't know what the magnitude is? And I said, well, it's probably a good indication that you should just come in if, TV is not working, media is not working, things are probably kind of bad, and that's a good indication that it's above a 5.0. So come on in. So you evaluate what's going on. You look at whether the power is out, whether you've lost TV, whether things have fallen off the shelf, and if it's a 5.0 or greater, or you see damage around you, that's a good indication that you're coming in. Yesterday's panel, I thought it was really interesting. They all agreed that they would prefer the earthquake to happen at night when everyone was home. And I kind of was like, I don't know, I think I kind of want people at work, and then I'm just not going to let them go home. And then I thought about what they were saying, and they said they liked it if they were home because then they knew what their families were doing. They knew whether their families were okay. They can get them situated and then come to work. If they were at work, they're going to freak out and want to go home and take care of their families. And so their ideal situation was at night or when families and their staff were home and then they can come in. All of them, their worst case scenario was commute hours. Can you imagine all of our staff being on the freeways trying to get home, and how are they going to turn around? Are they going to go home first, or are they going to come right back to work? They're probably going to go home first. It might take them hours, right? So mobilizing staff. Staff know when to mobilize. There's a magnitude level that they're requested to come in at, and they report back to the yard or to their agency. So one of the big questions that also came up was, what about where our staff live, and how is that a concern? I've always encouraged my districts to map where their staff live and to map who those staff are, because I threw a few stars on where I know some of my staff live, but what if they live out there in Riverside? And what if they live out there in LA County? And how long is it going to take them to get into work? And what if they have some other concerns, like their own property being damaged? Or maybe they're the sole provider for their family and they need to take care of the kids first. And maybe those are critical positions. So one of the things that I've encouraged the water utilities to do is identify those staff. Where are they? And do you have critical positions that maybe live outside of your service area or outside of the county? I had one district do this, and they realized all of their IT staff, Imperial County, all the way out in Imperial, right? Now, like, yep, we know our first resource request to you will be IT staff, because our staff aren't getting there very quickly. So those are the kinds of things that when you have those identified ahead of time, in that response, the first thing you can do is call me and ask for those critical staff that you might not get there right away. So we're going to mobilize all our staff. We're going to get them to our emergency operations centers. We're going to get them to our department operations centers. We're going to get them into our cities and our districts. And the first thing they're going to do is they're going to do damage assessment. And we're talking about response and how do we do damage assessment. And I got to tell you, one of the best ways is just turn on the TV, turn on Twitter, look it up, because you're going to find out a lot faster from everyone else, a lot of times, than you're going to find out by driving your own service area. So we're going to find out and use mass media. We're going to use our SCADA systems, right? We're going to check our SCADA systems and see what's happening in our service area. Now, when you have power outages, interruptions in communications, some agencies are aware when your wires burn, you don't get accurate reports. So that might be one source. We're also going to get customer service calls or customers coming in or waving us down and telling us what's going on with our service, right? And then we're going to do what we call a windshield survey. And I know this isn't an earthquake picture, but it was a good one. It was one that I could find that I had where you could still see my side view mirror. A windshield survey is where we're going to get a majority of our damage information. And this is where we assign staff to go out in the field, and they're going to drive your service area. And part of it, and it's kind of counterintuitive, is we tell them to stay in the car. Don't get out and start fixing things. I know you guys like to get out and fix things, but we just need to know an overall picture of what's going on with our service area. So your staff are going to get in their trucks and their vehicles, and they're going to go out and they're going to survey the damage. And they're going to report that damage back in so that in the Emergency Operations Center, they can look at all of that damage and prioritize where the crews go first. Now, they might take some temporary protective actions, right? If you have a hydrant blown off and you're flooding the street, they might take some stop, close a valve, make sure that they're not creating a hazard to the public or safety. But generally, you're not going to stop and fix things. You're going to keep going and get some ideas of what's going on in your service area so you can prioritize what do we fix first? Where do we send our limited crews? All right, so crews are out there, they're driving around, they're finding out what's going on, and then how do we communicate this? Big disaster, earthquake, what communications are going to work? We don't know, right? We don't know. So we try to have as many possible methods of communication as possible, all right? So for WeRock, we do have a WeRock radio. This allows all of the water utilities to communicate with each other. So they can communicate directly with each other, and they can communicate with me and my staff at the Emergency Operations Center. That's a really old picture in the far right corner. Joe Berg isn't here. I'll have to let him know he was a star this morning. So we have those radios to communicate with all of our water utilities. And my greatest fear, I got to tell you, one of my greatest fears is having to do water flow changes via radio. I'm afraid of that. I'm afraid of having to communicate between our water agencies and to Metropolitan to say we need a flow change on a major pipeline. That's going to be complex, and we're going to have to make sure we're doing it right. And so that's why we practice on those radios, and we practice how are we going to communicate this critical information. We also have what we kind of all expect to go down. We have our computers and our phones, right? So I couldn't throw Joe up there without putting a picture of myself up there. It wouldn't be fair to put another staff person out there with no notice. So we have what we call WebEOC. It's the county provides it for us. It's an internet-based information system that allows us to share information. All of your utilities have access to that and can share information that way. We're going to get back to email and phone calls. And guess what? We're going to use text messaging. I got to tell you, text messaging has worked in more disasters that I've been to more often than phone calls, satellite phones, computers, or email. Text messaging, getting back to that basic, it takes less data to push that message across the network, and it works. So we're going to go back to text messaging. And then I have that social media here. This is the We Rock Facebook page. We do have a Facebook page. Come follow us. And I got to tell you, we had, which earthquake was that? The Chino Hills earthquake. No, I lied. The Brea earthquake, La Habra earthquake. I had a water district check in over Facebook with me. They couldn't get a phone call out. They couldn't get on the phone. They couldn't get a message out. So she got on the Facebook page and she sent me a message. And she told me, hey, we're doing all right. I said, awesome. I don't care how I find out how your district's doing or what's going on or what you need, as long as I get the message. And so we're going to get the information a lot of different ways, and we're going to try it. One of the things I'll encourage you to ask your staff back at your districts, most districts have internal radio systems. They use their phones every day. They the radio's kind of loud, they turn it down. Encourage them to go and make sure those radios are working, they're turned on, they're operational, they've been charged. Can't tell you how many times I've heard from an agency in the middle of a disaster response that they went to use their internal radio system and they were in the back of the truck or floor of the truck and they hadn't been charged and the system was there, but people were so used to using their phones, they weren't ready to use the radios. So communications, it's going to be difficult, and guess what? If all of these things fail, we'll get on a bike, we'll jump in a car, we'll send a runner, whatever it takes. We'll send a messenger pigeon. We'll get the message. We'll make sure it happens. The other thing we can do for communications, we can put someone out in the field. If there's an incident command post out in the field with fire, with PD, city, we can put someone out there so that we have a direct liaison out in the field. And that is going to be one of our best ways to communicate with other corresponding and jurisdictions. And so we get them out in the field, and we do response out in the field if we have to. We forget about those radios and cell phones, and we go back to basics, talking to someone in person. It's hard. I know. It's hard to remember that. You can do that. All right. Resource requests. How are these going to go? Your agencies realize we need help. We need resources. So hopefully, they'll call We Rock, they'll call us, and they'll ask for some resources. And those resource requests have to be really detailed. You can't just tell me you need a generator. You need to tell me what size generator you need. What type of electrical output do you need? What kind of, can you tow it yourself, or is it a really big one and you need someone to bring it in for you? What kind of fuel does it take? Do you need someone to bring that fuel? Do you have an electrician on staff, or do you need an electrician to come with that generator? There's those details that need to come with those resource requests that will make them easier to fulfill. And I gotta be honest. The sooner we get them, more likely we are to be able to get that resource for you. During the power outages in South County, when the guy in Arizona accidentally flipped the wrong switch, that one. I had an agency ask me for 2 600-kilowatt generators. It was 8 hours into the power outage. There wasn't a generator in all of Southern California or Arizona or half of Northern California at that point. Get that request in early, and we're going to find the resource for you. But by then, it wasn't there. If you want people, I'm going to push and encourage, and I've been training the districts on this. You ask for people using the AWWA water and wastewater typing system. It's important. It's a great way to ask for exactly what you need, and I'm going to show you an example. City of Napa earthquake. The earthquake was, 4 in the morning. By 8 a.m., they had already told us, we're pretty sure we're going to need, and at first it came a little high, we're going to need 10 Type 3 teams. Wow. They've been looking at the manual. And within a couple hours, they had it in writing and in an email, and they backed it up a little bit. But this is what the typing manual looks like. You have a water distribution system damage assessment and repair team. So you know you need to repair pipes. You know you're going to need repair teams, right? So what this does is this says that if you ask for a Type 1, these are the type of people that you want coming with that team and the equipment that they should bring with them. And if you want a Type 2, then you want these type of people. If you want a Type 3, mostly working on 2 and 8-inch lines, then this is the type of crews you need. That's way easier to say, I want 5 Type 3 teams, instead of saying, I think I need 4 or 5 of these, and I need a truck, and I need them. You can just say, I need this. And Napa did it the best way possible. They said they need this, but then they also gave additional details. They said no welder is needed, even though the typing says that a welder is needed. We'll work primarily on 4 and 8 inch DIP and CI mains. So you knew exactly what type of material you're working on, and the crews can adapt what tools they're bringing based on that. If possible, bring your own shoring. They knew they were going to run out of shoring. So this type of request, we had crews there the same day because of how exact this request was. We had 5 crews from various agencies up in Napa on the ground, ready to respond the same day. So if you're going to ask for resources, this is how we're pushing for them to ask for people resources when they ask for people. And it's a very cool system, nationally recognized and approved. So another question came up is, how do we find our resources? Once that question's asked of WeRock and you guys are looking for resources, how do we find them? A lot of times your crews are already telling me where to find them when they call me. I gotta tell you, it's really awesome. They call and they say, I need a portable pump. One of my guys used to work for city. This happened in a real event. I need a portable pump. One of my guys used to work for us. He's now down in Laguna Beach. I know they have the equipment we need. If you call them, we'll get it. Awesome. I can make the phone call for you. I can make the coordination for you. Thank you for pointing me in the right direction. A lot of your crews have worked at various agencies, and they know what equipment various agencies have. And so sometimes when they call, they say, yeah, these 2 or 3 agencies might have it if you give them a call. And so a lot of times you guys are pointing me in the right direction in the first place. And then we ask non-impacted like agencies. So I'm looking at if you're a medium or large size district and you're asking me for some equipment, I'm going to assume an agency of a similar size and type and service is going to have similar equipment. And so I'll go that way. And then we do have a resource inventory list. Now that's not the top because it's a little old. It needs updating. But what we received is we received a resource list from every single water and wastewater utility in Orange County. So it's a couple years old, but I know exactly how many backhoes, how many generators of what size, how many engineers, how many Type 3 or D3 operators you might have. I have that all on the list, and I can search for it. But it doesn't have some of the details that help break down exacts. And so we'll go there, we'll look at that, and we start calling. And then if I'm up at the county OA EOC, I look at my partners across the table. When we're up at the county, WeRock's up at the county, we're sitting with Public Works, we're sitting with CHP, with Orange County Fire Authority, with the Sheriff's Department, and other partners throughout the county. And I'll start asking them if they know where I can get that type of resource. Google's my friend, especially when I'm asked for a resource that I have no idea what it is. Remember the first time I was asked for a female by female coupling, and I was like, is this work conversation? I'm confused. I was new to water. I didn't know. So Google's my friend. And then one of my favorite quotes from a gal that I appreciate and I went to training with about emergency responses, think outside of the castle. Can anyone tell me who she works for? Disney. Instead of think outside of the box, they're encouraged to think outside of the castle. But you got to think outside of the castle, right? You got to think outside of the box and think about who might be able to provide resources. And, thinking about, there's a gentleman who now works for Orange County Cemetery District. He used to be in the water world. Think about what the cemetery district can offer us, what resources they might have. Think about what a school district or another government entity might be able to provide, and try to think outside of the normal. What is it that just water agencies can help each other with? Let's think bigger than that, right? So that's how we're going to find your resources. And when all of that fails, at the same time that I'm working on that, I'm also going to ask your district to think of alternative solutions. While I'm looking for that resource, I'm going to say, can you kind of be thinking about if there's something else that might provide the same need with some other resource? Remember those 2 600 kilowatt generators that I had someone ask me for, and I was like, ooh, 8 hours in, we're going to look. I don't think we're going to find. Can you kind of try to work on another solution? That district called me back within a few hours and said, all right, instead of generators, I need this many feet of food-grade hose, and I need some couplings, and I need this. I'm like, you're replacing 200, 600 kilowatt generators with some hose and couplings? All right, you got engineers, you figured it out. Awesome, I can get you those things instead of generators. But we're going to also push your staff to look for alternative solutions at the same time, especially if it's a resource that might be hard to get a hold of. And when that all fails, and I can't help anymore, that's supposed to say what is the county's role in assisting local agencies. I apologize. I'm gonna make sure it's in the right order. I apologize, Vicki. Sorry, I was working on this last night. It's a little tired. All right, I'd like to introduce Vicki Osborn. She is the Assistant Manager for the Orange County Sheriff's Department Emergency Management Division. She'll give you a little more background. She is one of my absolute partners in emergency management and one of my good friends, and she's going to talk about the county's role.
So I've been working on my disability access functional needs planning, but thank you, Kelly. So my name is Vicki Osborn. I see a few familiar faces in the audience. So I've been actually with the Sheriff's Department. I just celebrated 22 years a couple weeks ago. So I actually started as a dispatcher, doing a lot of response and coordination at that level. And then approximately 12 years ago, I moved over into the emergency management field. And since then, it's just been amazing where we've come with emergency management. When I first moved over, people probably didn't know what emergency management really was. Then we had incidents happen, Katrina, and then it started getting more interesting, and now everyone wants everything now. You've heard about a lot of the projects Kelly is working on and what she does outside, because we're really seeing the trend that emergencies continue to happen. And as things continue to grow and we're going to see more and more disasters, we're really starting to understand that we're all in it together, and the preparedness piece is so important. So the reason my office exists, or the operational area, actually stems from a disaster. So a whole different lecture series is talking about the standardized emergency management system. Who knows about what that is? So maybe one or two. But to simplify it is, back in the 1990s, remember the big, large fire that happened up in Northern California? So like any good thing, a senator was impacted, we got a law. Isn't that how things work in California? But we got the standardized emergency management system, and what that did is that created what's known as the operational area, which we'll talk more about. So really what my mission is at the operational area, at the Sheriff's Department Emergency Management Division, is to do the full cycle of disaster planning, which is preparedness, response, mitigation, and recovery. But I have a dual function and role. I work for the county, so I'm responsible, or I work with the unincorporated areas of Orange County, but then I also act as the operational area coordinator, because that is indicated or dictated by state law. So I have lots of responsibilities. Preparedness, very similar to what Kelly does. What Kelly does with the water agencies, I do with the county, and then I also coordinate with the state. So I have that dual function. So what does that really mean? I have to follow a lot of legal mandates. The California Emergency Services Act has indicated that we will create 58 operational areas within California, which I'm sure Jim's going to talk more about, so I won't steal his thunder. But basically what that means is my job is to coordinate between all the political subdivisions within the county. So I'm working with all the special districts, the different cities, the different school agencies. I'm also working with nonprofits and other organizations. And our job is to really share and coordinate information and share and coordinate resources before we have to go ask the state for help, or before we have to go ask the federal agencies for help. So to do that, we do a lot of communicating, and we do a lot of forward planning. So the important thing to remember first, before we even get to that operational coordination piece, Kelly just talked about how you guys are going to work with the different agencies and see if each other can help each other. The same thing's happening at the city level. There's always a misnomer that FEMA's going to come in and take over, the state's going to come in and take over, the county is going to come in and take over. No. It's up to the local agency or the local jurisdiction to handle their emergency. They happen every day. And most of the times we don't hear about it because you're taking care of business. So everything starts at the lowest level, or the local level, the field level. It's their bucket. Now, if you have a hole in your bucket and you can't carry it anymore, we're going to come help you carry that bucket and help you try to fix that bucket. So that's really what we're doing. But there's a whole hierarchy of how we work here in not only Orange County, but even at the state. And I know Jim's going to talk more about those 5 levels. So there's really 3 rules of disasters that we talk about. And I hate using that fear. It's not if, but when. But it's reality, and we've seen that happen. It's happening right now. The last reports on Monterey County is there are wildland fires over 50,000 acres. That basically would be our entire canyon area burning up. And it's still growing. It's at about 60% containment. But we know things are going to happen. The drought's made it a big impact. We have so many dead trees statewide, right, because of bark beetles, so we know. We know we have areas in Orange County that are going to have that same impact. We have areas in South Orange County that hasn't burned in over 55 years. Now, I bring that up because what does the fire agency need to put out fire? Water. So we know that there has to be this partnership and marriage. So it's very important that people understand that the fire is going to happen at the local level, but it's going to require different partnerships in order to get back, put the fire out, and get back to normal if we have impacts to those areas. And we know there's always going to be problems. I kind of think it's like planning a wedding when you respond to a disaster, because no wedding ever goes perfect, right? Neither does a disaster. The day any emergency goes perfect without a flaw, I'm going to retire. Because every incident that happens, you always learn something. There's always something or a better way to do it. And a lot of those have to do with systems. And the number one thing that we always hear about is communications. And it's not just the systems of communicating with, but it's the people, the interface communications. Because sometimes there's breakdown. I like to go back to 2007 and Santiago Fire and how we responded. And I'm going to look at Bruce out in the audience because we've talked a lot since then. Because I would probably say 2000 Fire, we didn't do so good working with the community and communicating out. They formed their own communication networks among residents on understanding what's happening in their community. But I can say in the last, it's hard to believe it'll be 10 years next year, we have improved that communication, that partnership, to where now we actually have systems in place and we communicate a lot better. And we plan together. And we learn that because of what happened in 2007. And that happens with every disaster. Training responders, keeping them up to date, keeping them trained is also a big thing. We're seeing a big age of retirement and influx, and what happens is, and I know I'm going to see a head shake, you have someone that's been around 30 years, and they leave, that knowledge also walks out the door with them. And it's making sure that we keep that quality training and everything continuing on. And the other thing we have that's always been a challenge is keeping the community resilient. The community perspective is, the government will provide it. The water agencies, they'll get us water. They'll deliver it to our door. I've actually heard that. And it's getting people to understand that we rely on you. But people don't accept it till it happens to them. I love working with the canyons because they're probably the best prepared residents we have in Orange County because they've been impacted multiple times. They've been through the flooding, they've been through the fires. Other people are like, I'll get to it. How many people have a personal kit in their house? See, we're supposed to walk the walk, and we're supposed to help push that personal preparedness message, with our agencies. I appreciated Kelly's comment earlier about Dr. Lucy Jones. Everyone should be familiar with the Great Shakeout in October, right? So the first time we were planning that Great Shakeout was when Chino Hills, I was with Dr. Lucy Jones at Red Cross. And I was at the American Red Cross Santa Ana. That building's a very scary building to be in when there's an earthquake. But Chino Hills happened, and the first thing it rocked, we all did this, looked at Dr. Lucy Jones. She's all, get out of the desk, what are you guys doing? And it started shaking. We were still shaking. She's all right, it's in Chino Hills. But I can tell you, when Kelly talked about if the earthquake happens at night, it would be better. I'm a very dedicated public employee. Kelly can tell you I am. I always answer the phone. You can call me whatever, but I could tell you my son was 3 years old. I didn't care about the community at that point. My thought went to him. Oh my gosh, it's his first earthquake. He's in preschool. What am I going to do? I can't get on the phone. Text messaging. So I text messages my 6 deep. Came to find out my son was running the everyone get out of the table at preschool. So I taught him well already at that young age. But it's important to keep that community and your employees resilient, because it's really important, those rules of disasters. So let's talk a little bit real quick about the past. Statistics. We all know what Orange County statistics are, right? We know how many how many miles we have, square miles, how many residents. But there's two important key facts at the bottom of the slide. One is in the last 10 years, we have had 8 federally declared disasters in Orange County. That's a lot. Yes, Kelly just made the comment that since we both came to emergency management, they called me the Black Cloud because they didn't have disasters till I moved from dispatch to emergency management. But I bring that up because most cities in the nation will never understand what it's like to go through a disaster. We have a lot of counties still in California that's never been through a disaster, but we've had that many in the past few years. Does anyone know what majority of those are for? Flooding. That's what happens when you build a large urban area on a floodplain. So all those that live in North Orange County, that's why it always floods in the streets when we have an inch of rain over a little bit of time. But that's a lot. And I bring it up because our past we've had a lot of disasters. Yes, that's Gerald Arnold in the middle. Now you can tell the difference between photography. I've done a collection over the years. But I have one that's a little bit older than 10 years, but anyone know what the Anaheim Stadium picture might be from? Northridge. When Northridge happened, it happened in L.A. Remember the good old scoreboard when the Big A was open and, right? It fell into the center field bleachers. Now imagine if it was evening time during a game and the bleachers were full. So we've had all kinds of disasters. Up left is looking across Mission Viejo Lake at the fire in the canyons, Freeway Complex fire. The housing slides we've had happen twice in Laguna Beach. That's Bluebird. Most recent one was in the 2000s. The other one happened in the 1960s. We had flooding in 2010 happen in multiple areas of the county. Laguna Beach, because of a Connex box that blocked a flood control channel. We had a lot of flooding up in the canyon areas. Prado Dam, we had a little dam leak, as they called it, in 05, but it was seepage. That's not how it came out, though. So we've had a lot of things, and we know that we have disasters that happen over and over, but not one entity can respond to these alone. We've had lots of activations. We activate, on average, our EOC about 5 times a year. So you can see we have all kinds of things happen. Majority of those, as you can tell, is from rain and flooding. So what makes us have to trigger and coordinate? We have things that are written, if 2 cities are impacted, if a county city is impacted, but also if there's a need. If there's a mutual aid need, we're going to activate to coordinate. But I can tell you, I don't just sit in my office and wait. All right, something bad is going to happen. We also monitor. We monitor the weather. When there's a wildland fire that happens, I know. And we start monitoring to track what it is. Heard a pager go off earlier. I know it was for a medical aid. So we track things and we monitor because we want to be proactive. We want to get a jump on things because we know if certain things start growing, there might be resource needs. We may have to coordinate, the needs for evacuations. We may have to coordinate the needs for equipment, people, places, things. So to do that, there's a lot of communication plans. And you heard Kelly talk about some of the systems, the operational radio system, which the WACO radio system is a part of. It may not work, so we have backup systems. We also have public information systems that help us. Conference call procedures. H1N1 was a fantastic thing for us. There was no way I wanted all those people in the EOC with the potential of getting the flu, right? You don't want all those people together. So back then, and this is a lessons learned on how we make things better. Back then we had a conference call bridge that allowed us to talk to 30 people at once. There are 115 political subdivisions of the county. Now, let's just take the 34 cities. Now, if H1N1 was happening in your city, you think you're just going to have one person call in? No, you're going to have multiple. So what got me was a brand new conference call bridge that now allows me to talk to hundreds of people one time. So we keep improving and continuing processes. Why? For coordination. Conference call procedures are probably one of the best ways or best mechanisms we have to coordinate, because face-to-face is great, but sometimes to work quickly, you need to have that conference call thing. EAS system's a great way for us to communicate with the public. It's not perfect. Yes, I always get asked, do you purposely interrupt my favorite show with it? I know what your favorite show is. But the problem with EAS is there's different codes, and not every code is perfect, because you can't always put it in a certain area. There isn't an evacuation EAS code. There isn't a shelter-in-place EAS code. You have to use civil unrest or civil disturbance, which then, I'm sorry, thank you, Kelly. The emergency alert system. Everyone know what the emergency alert system is on the TV? When it comes on, it goes beep, beep, beep. So to give you an idea, if we had an evacuation happening in one small area or a specific thing, it has to go out to the entire county. We did that once when we had flooding in one area, and pretty much every 911 center manager yelled at me the next 911 meeting because all the PSAPs got interrupted or flood in of 911 calls asking, was that EAS message for our town? What's going on? Where's the civil unrest? So there's other mechanisms we have to use and build to use in conjunction with each other because there's not one great way. So we've brought in Alert OC, which is our mass notification system for the county, which we've given access to all the cities, and also the water districts have access to it. The other great way is just what we call route alerting. Tell a friend. We know neighbors are going to tell neighbors, social media. So really putting those communication plans are going to help us coordinate. So everyone always talks about the public safety agencies or the government agencies, the special districts responding, but there's all kinds of other people that we work with that we have to. There are 14,000 county employees. There's 3.2 million people. So if you do the ratio, there's not enough public safety and then if you add the municipalities, still not enough. So we have to work with other groups and organizations, and it's been proven and true. Everyone thinks that if we have a disaster, that federal agencies are going to come in and be able to provide whatever we need. But it's not always true because it depends on if we qualify for help. So we depend on volunteer organizations. We saw that happen in 2010 on the what we call individual assistance, but for private residents. We did not qualify for FEMA help. So we had volunteer agencies going out doing bucket brigades. We had them providing supplies. We worked with our partnerships with Home Depot. We brought in different type of shovels, Vasquine, and all those resources were brought in volunteer organizations. Saw the same thing in San Bruno. We've seen it all across the state. It's going to be a matter of volunteer organizations help bringing people and help bring the community back to as normal as we possibly can. And we also have to work with community members. Again, if all our communities banded together and became more prepared, it would make our job so much easier. Just think, if everyone kept a week's worth of water, wouldn't that make your guys' life easier? Yeah, because then you could focus on getting the infrastructure back on, and people ask about, hey, I don't have water. I bring that up because that's another Kelly project that we're working on together in regards to water distribution, commodities distribution. So it's really relying on those community members to coordinate and plan together. And I think we've made great strides, but Kelly brought up Northridge. Northridge happened a long time ago. La Habra earthquake was good for everyone to remember, oh, earthquakes are out there, but we see if we don't have the disasters happen, people are like, they forget about it. Terrorism, right? Everyone remembers 9/11, but everyone kind of sees some say something, okay, until San Bernardino happened again. So we see the same type of thing. So it's really, again, getting the community members to stay with us. Incident command system, we use that to coordinate. It's a simple structure. We even use it with our nonprofit groups. We coordinate with all our local agencies, like I said. The volunteer organizations here in Orange County, we call them the COAD. Most people know them as VOAD, Volunteer Organizations Active in Disaster. We call them COAD because we bring in private partners and also our faith-based group. They're a very active group. This past Monday, they just revised their emergency management plan and their coordination plans. They just updated them because they just tested it and they didn't like a few things, so they're continuing to move forward. So it's really exciting stuff. Partnerships and MOUs, like Kelly said, those are some of the most important things that we can have in place beforehand. One of my other jobs is I'm the Emergency Management Mutual Aid Coordinator for the county. So my job is to work very closely with the state, and you'll hear more about Emma and you'll understand why. But these MOUs that we have in place beforehand are so important, for not just for people, but also for things and for stuff, because we know we're going to have to ask for things quickly. And it could be from other government agencies, but it also can be from volunteer and private sector agencies. So what makes us ready in Orange County? Obviously, we have a lot of systems in place. Kelly's talked about systems. We have a lot of systems. Partnerships are the biggest reason why we are prepared. One thing that we do in Orange County is we meet monthly, the Orange County Emergency Management Organization, to do planning efforts, because a lot of the planning beforehand is most important. I like to introduce myself to many people even outside the county as I can, because you don't want to be shaking the hand at the disaster going, "Hi, I'm Vicki. I work for the Sheriff's Department at the county, and this is what my job is in planning. Who are you?" So these partnerships are key to understand. We have great executive level buy-in. We may not always think our executives are listening to what we're saying, but I can tell you that they are very supportive at the Board of Supervisors, and they really do understand what we do. In fact, we have a quarterly meeting with all the department heads and the board next week. We exercise and we train. We just had one earthquake exercise. We have another one next week, in a couple weeks, next month. And we continue training. We have a great communication system. One thing that we have in Orange County that most counties don't have is the ability for law enforcement to talk to the fire department, that can talk to public works, that can talk to the dog catcher, who could talk to the lifeguard on one channel and coordinate on one channel. So we have that great capability, and that's huge when we have an incident. They can also talk to the EOC, the Emergency Operations Center. We can also patch channels together with other counties. So that gives us another way that we can communicate and coordinate. Master mutual aid agreements, like has already been mentioned. And then innovation, thinking outside the castle or the box. Plans are great, but plans aren't always meet their purpose. You have to be flexible. Because I think one of the best things I've seen from the Napa earthquake was the quick ingenuity of, let's get water distribution by attaching to a hydrant and telling people, bring your bottle. And thinking outside the box, instead of bringing water bottles in, is turning around and spreading it out the other way. And that was on the fly type thinking. So innovation is huge during a disaster, being flexible, because there isn't a script. Every disaster is different. So with that, I will turn it over to Mr. Jim from the state.
All right. Jim Acosta, Senior Emergency Planner with California Office of Emergency Services, Southern Region. It's a very long title. Thank you, Jim.
So how do I do this?
Just left arrow.
Okay.
Right arrow.
Okay. Good morning. I guess I should use the microphone. I am our office's liaison to Orange County, and what that means practically is that when Vicki's Emergency Operations Center opens up, I go to the Emergency Operations Center as a liaison to the state, which means that I can pass information back and forth in a very quick manner to the decision makers in the Emergency Operations Center and pass on the needs and the situation back to the State Operations Center very quickly. So it's a really good kind of a setup there. About me, I've had about 30 years of experience in various aspects of public safety. I started out in law enforcement. I've been a volunteer firefighter and EMT. I've led a federal disaster medical team. So I've got all kinds of different experiences and stuff. I'm kind of like an acre foot. My knowledge is about a foot deep and about an acre wide. So I figured you guys would be the only ones that would understand that. So our basic mission is to support local government. That's not on our webpage. That's not our official title, but that's basically what we do. Is we support local governments. It's your emergency. You remain an owner of it, and we just support you guys. Again, our kind of basic law that we follow is the Emergency Services Act. It defines the role of the government, or the governor, and powers of the governor and my agency during all types of emergencies. Establishes 3 different types of emergency. The state of war emergency, which is, kind of if a Pearl Harbor happened in California, the governor could proclaim a state of war emergency. The more common state of emergency, which the governor proclaims on a regular basis based on local emergencies that occur or emergencies that occur in various areas of the state. And then the most common, which is the local emergency, which is at the county or, like Vicki told you, the operational area level. or city level, and the governing body of that jurisdiction proclaims that level of emergency. The California Disaster and Civil Defense Master Mutual Aid Agreement is what basically governs mutual aid throughout the state. And some of you might appreciate this was signed by Governor Earl Warren back in the 50s. So it's been with us for a long time, and that's why civil defense is in the title. We also administer the California Disaster Assistance Act. If you've been around a while and you've had disasters, you may have been a recipient of CDAA funds. It's the state counterpart to the Federal Stafford Act, which is what FEMA uses to provide assistance to local governments. It's for public infrastructure, so that would include water systems. The state pays 75% or more of the repair costs, so that's a pretty good deal. But it is at the governor's discretion, and it depends on which governor you have, whether or not they're liberal about it or very conservative about it. Governor Schwarzenegger was very liberal with CDAA funds. Governor Brown is much more conservative. At the federal level, of course, FEMA is our counterpart. The president may declare an emergency or a major emergency, and what the distinction there is what programs would be available to the local governments and even to individuals under their disaster programs. Our agency is the grantee for federal funds, and so if your system is impacted in your part of the presidential disaster area, we would be working with you as the kind of the pass-through representative for FEMA and assisting you in completing projects and getting reimbursement. The law gives our agency the ability to call upon all state agencies to provide support. So, for instance, in the 2010 floods, we brought Caltrans heavy equipment in to help clear roads. We bring crews from the California Conservation Corps to do flood fighting and debris clearance. Cal EPA gives us the ability to bring scientific help in emergencies. And the California National Guard, of course, has a variety of capabilities, and it is under the authority of the governor to dispatch those. So, for instance, right now up at the Soberanes fire, there are 2 National Guard water or fuel tenders supporting the aerial attack on the fire. So we were able to provide those assistance to Monterey County for that incident. So I hate flowcharts, but this basically shows how resource requests kind of move.
How simple it is.
Right. Yeah. Simple. And the way the screen is laid out, it kind of adds additional lines that make it a little confusing. But the point being that your point of contact for getting assistance is at the operational area, right? Right, through WEROC. And then the operational area, if they can provide you assistance, great. If not, they push it up to our region, which is where I work, and we work to get them those resources through various areas. And then if the region is impacted so much that we can't provide the assistance, we push it up to our state headquarters in Sacramento, and they can look throughout the state or even to the federal government for that assistance. Cal OES will not come and take over your incident unless that's what you need. That's the counties that were affected by the Valley Fire were very impacted, and their emergency manager wasn't available during a portion of that, and so we brought additional emergency management people in to assist with that. And we don't pay for everything. In fact, we may pay for nothing, depending upon the situation. It's never something that you can rely on that you're going to get that help. And we do not substitute for planning and preparation on your part or on WEROC's part. That's it's expected that as part of your duties, you will prepare for emergencies. So moving resources in a disaster area can be very complicated. In the upper left, you can see National Guard at Hurricane Sandy putting potable water into a trailer for distribution. Of course, warehouses full of water is something that we'd have to help with and help manage. In this lower left-hand corner, you can see 2 Southern California Edison bucket trucks in a in a Air Force transport plane getting ready to go to Hurricane Sandy. An extraordinary use of military assistance to help out those communities out there, but it is something that does happen. And then, of course, the biggest impediment to access in a disaster area is the fact that people are evacuated and law enforcement keeps people out. So it's very important to have that link between emergency operations centers and law enforcement liaisons so that we can make sure that when your truck gets to that checkpoint, they can go through without any hassle. So we operate under the state emergency plan. It's available on our website. It's very easy reading, actually. County, cities, and special districts apply. Emergency plans apply only to that jurisdiction, and catastrophic plans are different. They assume that a whole area is going to be impacted. Hurricane Sandy is a good example of a catastrophic disaster. Katrina the same way. And the assumption is that the damage and the human needs will be so great that we not only need to prepare to assist, but we need to push things out to them before they even ask for it, like water, food, diapers, that kind of thing that we know that the victims are going to need. We can anticipate that in advance and then respond accordingly. So these are the regions that are established within California, the three big ones, coastal, inland, and we are in southern region. Those are administrative regions. And then within each one is mutual aid regions. So we're in mutual aid region 1. And that's just a way to subcategorize the flow of mutual aid when it needs to happen. There's 5 emergency response levels. You're down at the local government level if you're a water district. I'm up at the Cal OES region level, and Vicki's department is in the operational area level. When there's an emergency, we activate our state operations center and regional operations center, where I work out of in Los Alamitos is the location of our regional emergency operations center for Southern California. And one of the big things that we provide is we don't know what help to send you unless we can talk to you. And so we have a variety of redundant communications in order to maintain that communications link, which is so critical in a disaster. Do I have any hams in here? Just Vicki. So we have a variety of different modes of communication. So Vicki touched on the Emergency Management Mutual Aid program. Kelly's actually been deployed several times under this program. And the idea is that there's very strong law, fire, and even coroners mutual aid within California. But there wasn't a way for us to share emergency management personnel with other jurisdictions, and technical specialists as well, so like a water system engineer or that kind of a thing. So what this plan does is it gives a structure to getting aid from unaffected areas to support operational areas and local jurisdictions in an emergency. It has standardized forms and terms are negotiable. Maybe the receiving jurisdiction can't afford to pay for the assistance, so they can work that out with the sending jurisdiction. And that's it for me.
So, thank you, Jim. I'm sorry. He was trying to go very fast because I was going like this to him. And, he knew he was going to get caught. Was that a...
Yes, it was.
I don't know if you guys heard the little ring in the back just a second ago. Vicki, you want to explain what that was?
Sure. Our office is currently beta testing the state early warning for earthquakes. So if that earthquake is actually going to occur in Santa Barbara, we won't feel any shaking, but it gives you, depending on where it's going to happen, some notification ahead of time. So if we were to get the big one, we're hoping if you get 30 seconds notice, right? Think about all the things that can happen. From the water, think about water, there's certain maybe things you can do with SCADA system, but think outside the box. Stopping certain trains. Imagine if you're a surgeon being able to pull your scalpel out of your patient. So we're very hopeful that this is going to get launched to the public very soon. Still testing, obviously. Like every system is going to have some quirks, so I'm excited. What my work wanted to actually happen, we'd have to feel something there and go, hey, we're going to shake this head like.
If you have it on your computer, it makes a sound and then it counts down. And let me tell you, that's the most ominous countdown I've ever heard. 10, 9, it's like shaking will start. 8, 7, it's ominous. Questions? We only have a few moments here for anyone.
Well, I like to congratulate all of you in the presentation. I thought it was excellent. I personally worked as a consultant for FEMA for the last 15 years. I have 15 different staff, including California. And I thought I'd mention a few things on the FEMA side. A little above that is that disasters for FEMA participation requires a certain level of disaster occurring counties. Just for your information, it's like $4 per person per county. And the governor has to declare a disaster before FEMA can come in and do anything. The other thing is FEMA has an Emergency Management Institute back east, which has an excellent independent studies program for like 100 different classes people could take. And that is something that our staff here can go online as part of their annual evaluation to take those classes.
So if you guys couldn't hear that, FEMA does have an online instruction course where staff can take the IS and independent study classes, and so you can go to their online courses, and they have quite a few very excellent classes that you can take online for various areas. Yeah. Additional questions? Do you want to ask that?
One of the ones they've recently added is the mutual aid coordination or the multi-agency coordination piece, so it's good to understand how things kind of move back and forth. So that's a good one to take.
Additional question?
Yeah, as an elected official, it's really interesting to hear all this. Sometimes you do it in bits and pieces over the last 10 years maybe, but to have it consolidated like this is very interesting. Is there any way that we can consolidate a 15 to 30 minute presentation for the citizens? Like in Hot Valley, we have a major breakfast where we have a speaker come and talk about the topic. Something like this I think would be very interesting. Is there any...
Are you a city of Mountain Valley?
Yeah.
We can work with Michelle, your emergency coordinator, to put something like that together.
All right, we can tell the John Holmes has...
Yeah.
No, I'm serious.
Yeah, no, I will.
know at least something.
We work with her all the time.
Okay.
Yeah. I saw him.
Kelly, during the earthquake, we sent a couple of teams up to help.
Yep.
And the things that we found, there were no plans, showing where pipes are and where the conflicting pipes were. So having those available for, you can get all these type 3, type 2 teams out there, but if they don't know what's in the ground, there's very limited ability to fix anything. And then might just hit the gas line and cause yet another disaster along the way. Giving food to the people up there was an interesting thing because a major earthquake or a disaster, everything shut down, there's no power, so all the restaurants are closed, so you've got to get food to the people. All these trucks that go out to construction sites that won't be working.
Have a contract with them now.
Yeah. So there are a lot of things, and many of your people won't be able to get in because you assume that phones are broke and everything are working, but I'm assuming bridges are down, things will shut down. So you've got to cross-train people to do that early assessment so you understand what the situation is, what the key facilities are.
So 2 points on that. One, I encourage you, having a contract, actually IRWD has this. They have a contract with a couple food truck companies for disaster response so that in a disaster they could ask those food truck companies to come and support their crews. It's an excellent concept because they're self-contained. It doesn't matter if you're not pushing water to their restaurant. And then on the other point about not knowing your crews and who you're going to have, I think it's Molten Lake Water District has a great program where they are cross-training their administrative and customer service staff on how to do basic windshield surveys, how to go out into the field and just look and pull the water level on a reservoir and look at some basic information so that even if they don't have all of their crews who can go out and look at everything, they can pull some of that administrative staff to help supplement. They might not be able to do repairs and shut down valves, but they can go out and get some readings and some ideas and know what the damage is to report back. So 2 very excellent points.
We send teams out to people's homes, doing inspection on the water heaters, so so their home was safer, so they were more likely to be able to come to work instead of having to go home and repair things and come and take care of things there. I mean, there's just a few of the things that you could do. It would be helpful, of course, if we had common specifications, amongst the agencies that we could transmit plans, use common part numbers, that would really help to get things fixed and back online.
That makes way too much sense. Thank you. I think we have time for one more question. You're okay? We're okay. 7. Oh, I was told something. Go ahead.
Is there a lessons learned document somewhere?
Yes.
I work for JPL, NASA Mission Operations, and so all of this stuff has parallels to what we do. Key context is what I tell people in operations is I don't want to have a cold feeling in the pit of my stomach when something happens to a satellite. There should be procedures in place, and people should know exactly what they're to do. Back on your radios that were not charged and turned down and stuff.
Oh my.
How about a weekly radio check and a call back to key in personnel to make sure everything? I'm sure the sheriff's department does it.
We do it across the county once a month. We test 8 different systems that we have for communications. The challenge we have is getting everyone to participate. You can leave the horse in the water, but we can't make them drink.
Yes.
So that's our challenge, is getting people.
We have tests. We just need people to play.
We have a lot of procedures, but I think the biggest piece, a lot of people don't have time to fill out the procedures, right? Have to do beforehand, and that network and that preparedness piece of introducing, making people understand is that training function. So that's where we're really trying to focus, is to keep that constant flow of training going. And yes, after every disaster, we all get together and we talk about what went well, but also what goes wrong. We write an after-action report, and we are some of our hardest critics, which is good, because we want to make it better. Because when something catastrophic happens, we're learning from the smaller disasters that we have happen in Orange County.
There's one other thing, too. You hear criticism about jurisdictional arguments amongst districts. For example, fire breaks out.
We love each other.
I know, but that's not the case necessarily, because you hear they were talking.
This
Airplanes
is why
were ready to bomb the fires, and then when they were small.
This is why we talk about having those jurisdictional relationships, building relationships ahead of time. I just met, for instance, there was a fire in South County I'm losing track of time, month and a half or so ago, and one of the water utilities called the local fire station, and I didn't like how the interaction went. And I thought, is that the right way it's supposed to happen? So I met with the fire chief. I met with Chief Bowman just 3 weeks ago with OCFA, the Orange County Fire Authority, and I said, hey, Chief, is this the way we're supposed to be doing this? And he had 2 assistant chiefs in the room with us, and one said yes, and another one goes no. And so we talked through it. And so we talked about, wait, how should this have gone? And it wasn't wrong, but was there a better way to do it? And so we came up with a communication protocol for any jurisdiction within OCFA. That protocol has been shared with your water utilities. They will now call dispatch supervisor. And then if they can't get through to the dispatch supervisor, then they'll go back and call 911. And the key is saying, I have information critical to your incident response. Not just I'm a water utility calling, it's I have information critical to the response. And so we came up with this protocol. I had one in the back, and then I have one last slide that I'm going to share. In the very back.
So you mentioned earlier at the analysis that there was difficult that resource allocation.
Yes.
It seems to me that that's a major flaw in our program, and it seems to me that we can most be able to address that. So
that would be nice.
We can work around, that takes a laying out the whole process for us. So obviously, for resources to address problems. So what is your suggestion and how can we help?
Okay. Well, one, I got to say, your resources really don't change that much that often. You guys are not buying new 600 kilowatt generators every year, or new backhoes and new, some of that equipment costs just a little bit of money. So your resource list is not changing that often, but it does need updating. And so one of the things that you guys as elected officials can do is going back and asking your jurisdiction if they have updated that resource list. that WeRock. It's WeRock in the county. It's in WebEOC, that online system that I mentioned. And encouraging them to update those lists with us and working with us to do that is something that we would very much appreciate.
And it's something to think about with the resource request and that sharing is your jurisdiction agency usually knows what you have inventory. So if the request comes out as being very responsive to know, hey, I have it and I can provide it, it's almost just as important as to make sure that information is shared back and forth.
Sir, is it a quick question?
Just a quick observation. Agriculture and construction, those are resources that you can use. We talked about the fact that they have tractors, they have pumps, they have the generators, they have. We all use those things. And I know the local Farm Bureau and the local construction associations.
Which Vicki knows very well on the ag side.
And we used to do that.
Great out of the castle thinking. Thank you. Just really quickly, I want to point out, September is National Preparedness Month, an excellent opportunity for you to encourage your agencies to work on preparedness, share preparedness information with your residents. Countywide, we're having a disaster exercise on September 29th. I encourage WeRock will be activating its Emergency Operations Center for a disaster drill. I encourage each of your agencies to participate and interact with us for that. And then the Great Shakeout this year is on October 20th, and that's where we try to get all of California to drop, cover, and hold on the same day and time, and to promote the concept of that that methodology for protection and safety. So with that, thank you very much, everyone.
Really appreciate Vicki and Jim and Kelly organizing today's program. So I know there's a lot of food for thought. We're just at the beginning of emergency response. I know we're going to be talking about it at the future meeting. So have a good day.
Thank you.